Hey there, Squirrel Army! Today we're discussing one of the new cards from Phyrexia All Will Be One, Vanish into Eternity. Now this spell, obviously for those people who have been looking at it since it was spoiled, has an obvious comparison in Generous Gift. They're both 3 mana, they're both instants, and they both do stuff with mostly our opponent's control. I think we're mostly going to be targeting our opponents with these. Generous Gift, obviously, for those people who don't remember this card, it is a bit of a good card. It destroys any permanent, and its controller just gets a 3/3 elephant creature. Now, some people say that giving people a 3/3 is a bad deal, but honestly, if a generic 3/3 is the thing that's stopping you from winning, there's something seriously wrong going on. Vanish into Eternity, also 3 mana, but costs 3 more mana to cast it if it targets a creature, and you get to exile a non-land permanent. Now, obviously, exile is so much better than destroy, and you don't leave them with that 3/3, which I know some people don't like, and obviously it is a slight downside, but obviously it's not that big of a downside. The downside on this is you have to pay up to exile creatures. So the question becomes, how good is Vanish into Eternity? And I think it is pretty darn good, as long as you're not targeting creatures. And that's the slight unfortunate bit, because the metagame that I think it fits into is the lower power of Commander, because it's not a free spell and it's not that good. It's not that bad, but it's not that good. Because of that restriction, I don't think it would see any play in CEDH, because again, a lot of the key creatures would still be a thing that you would need to deal with, and having to pay 6 mana to exile something just isn't really well worth it unless you're in a very dire pinch. So it's one of those things that you would not usually take it in those set of circumstances. In my opinion, I might be 100% wrong, but again, it's just one of those things. However, in the lower powers of EDH, the problem is, well, most people are playing a lot of creatures, so you want to be able to target their creatures with this. So then again, 6 mana to exile something is a really big ask. But again, if you're exiling any non-land permanent other than a creature, I do think that the rate on this is well worth it. Certainly, if you are in these colours, you do have access to Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile, and even Contraband Livestock, just to name a few, that do deal with creatures. So it's not like you don't have options to exile creatures, but certainly when you have this in your hand and there's a key creature that you need to exile, it does feel super bad when you need to pay up 6 mana to get rid of it. So it might not be that bad, but in those circumstances, but it certainly will kick you in the pants, especially when somebody has ward or something else on their creature and whatnot. That always comes up in the games that I play. Oh, did you pay for the ward, and did you pay for Rhystic Study and Rhystic Remora and this and that and whatever else they've got, or did you pay for Esper Sentinel and whatnot and all this other stuff? So it's always one of those things that you don't always have to count what's on the spell as far as what it actually costs. You have to count what your opponents are going to be probably playing. So it's always one of those things that you have to try to consider when you're playing a spell like this. I do think it is a well worthwhile spell. It is a common. You're going to find these on the cheap in your packs when you open this set, if you do choose to open it, or you're just going to be very easily able to find it at your LGS or online LGS for a very cheap price, because there's going to be a lot of them out there. So I do think it is a worthwhile pickup, but it is one of those pickups where you do have to be aware in your mind that it basically says non-creature permanent for the most part. So yeah, do keep that in mind, because paying 6 mana to exile a creature really is a hurting for you. So if you're not using it on creatures, I would 1000% run it. If you're thinking that you're going to be able to exile creatures with it, I would just wait till you draw your Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile, or Contraband Livestock, or something else, because yeah, it's not worth it. You will be better served to draw something else. But that is my thoughts on this card. I still think it's a really great card and definitely worth playing. I don't know whether I'm going to replace my Generous Gifts in my deck. I might well do, because again, for the most part, the Generous Gift slot in my deck is mostly to just get rid of a non-land permanent, i.e. artifact, creature, planeswalker, or some utility land. It usually isn't there for creatures, though in a pinch it hits creatures. So just the flexibility of exiling anything, and yeah, most of the time I'm not going to care that I have to worry about a creature on the battlefield. If I really am being pressured by a creature on the battlefield, then I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I'll have to bite the bullet and exile it for 6 mana. But otherwise, unless it's life or death, or it's, game winning style of an effect, then I probably wouldn't care for the most part. So that's where I'd be at with that. So yeah, you guys can let me know your thoughts on this. Would you play it in your decks? Are you going to try it in your decks? Are you going to replace Generous Gift? Are you going to run both? Certainly in some decks I think you can run both. But is it better? Let me know your thoughts down there in the comments below, and I hope to catch you in the next one. You can join the Squirrel Army by subscribing